Michael was born in 1831 in England, and I am a Cornish man born in Cornwall. And us Cornish folks back there, a lot of mining going on in Cornwall, and we are known as Jacks. The Cornish Jacks were Cornish miners. But by the age of 16, my father died. And I had 8 siblings. Myself and my older brother became miners to keep the household whole and have income. By the age of 22, though, I had earned enough money, and so had my brother. We had wanderlust. We decided we'd head for America. Got to Liverpool, got on a packet ship, and ended up in New York. Well, upstate New York and around that area, there were mines, so I kept my mining profession. But after 5 years in that part of the world, I decided I'd better go back to Cornwall. I lost something there or left something there. And when I got back to Cornwall, I found it. Her name was Mary Ann Ogden. But in it, Mary Ann and I got married. And after we got married, we just headed right back to the promised land of America. And got to New York, but we didn't stay there. We went across the country and ended up in California. We were in California for 10 years. A lot of mining going on in California, so I kept my career going in the mining industry. But the big, let's say, attraction in my mining career was going to the hot spots. And right then it was Virginia City, Nevada. I ended up in Virginia City. We started our family there and had a good time in Virginia City because I was promoted and I had an excellent career. 5 years in Virginia City. After the 10 years in California, we had enough money. We thought we'd go back and visit Cornwall again. So we did, said hi to friends and family, but the United States was our destiny. Back we went. By that time, the railroad went across the continent, and we got back to the west a lot quicker than we did when we went to California, but we ended up in Pioche, Nevada. Pioche, well, in the 1870s, Pioche was a bustling place in the early part of that decade. We went there in 1875. Things were starting to be a little bit tenuous in 1875. They ran out of the good ore, and a couple of the mines were closing. By 1878, a whole bunch of people were leaving Pioche. A bunch of the miners. They were going to a place over there in Utah, a place called Silver Reef. Well, we packed our family up and went to Silver Reef. We got to Silver Reef, and I had a good mining career, so I had good mining knowledge, and they made me a foreman at the Buckeye Mine. And I did well enough as a foreman, they promoted me. This was a Stormont Mining Company. They promoted me for shift boss. That means I was in charge of the entire mine during my shift. I was at the California mine. And in October, I was going into the mine. Well, let me take you into the mine and kind of show you what my mining environment was like. You're going to see a few things in the mine that kind of give you a good idea of what my career was all about. Well, follow me in. I'm going to come on in, and we're going to go into this portal. It's a timbered portal. It's timbered because it needs to hold up the loose ground. And as we go into the mine, you're going to go past the walls of the mine or the ribs of the mine. The roof of the mine is the back. But we'll go in and we're going to see an ore car full of rock. Well, this ore car right here is full of waste rock. It's just rock we're mining through. It's sandstone. We're throwing it away. When you go out into this mining area, you're going to see openings all over. There's over 450 openings in these hills. And every one of these openings got a pile of this waste rock, because they had to mine through a bunch of rock that was worthless to get into the ore zone. So when you go out in here, you're going to see these piles of rock, and if you walk up on top of them, you're going to see a mine opening. Well, this same ore car you're seeing right here is an ore car that actually hauls the ore out once we get into the ore. And we just haul it outside and dump it in a chute that loads a wagon. The wagons go into the nearest mill. Well, once you get past this ore car, you're going to see the mule. The mule lives here. He likes it underground. It's 65 degrees year-round here, and we take good care of the mule. In fact, he likes it here because he's taken good care of. He gets better food here than he can find for himself out in that old dried out pasture. He gets his oats and his hay and his water, and we make sure he's well taken care of, because he's harder to replace than finding another miner. So when you come past the mule, you're going to see all this nice stuff. His rigging, his singletree, his breast collar. You're going to see his halter. But we go past the mule, you're going to find the miner. We got a miner in here. He's doing his work. Now, single guy hammering on a drill steel, making a hole. He's going to make a whole pattern of holes, and he's going to fill them with black powder. He's single jacking. One miner drilling a hole, single jacking. Like I said, those miners are jacks. Those are Cornish miners called jacks, like me. I'm a jack. Now, if we get two guys in here, his buddy comes in after he makes room for his buddy. There's two of them, and that's double jacking. Do we have jacks around today? Do we have jackhammers? That's where the term came from, the Cornish jacks. All right, well, now you see them mine. I had another job today as the shift supervisor. Beside coming in here and making sure the mining was going and everything was well supplied, I have a fellow I got to find. He's a troublemaker. He's this guy he's Irish. He's an Irish miner. Those Irish, some of them are pretty good miners, but this guy, he's got a temper and he doesn't do his job and he refuses to do things. Besides, he's just a troublemaker. I'm going to get rid of him. When I find him on my way out of the mine, I know where he's supposed to be. I'm going to fire him. So let's go on out and find Tom. So as we go out of the mine, there he is. He's out in this crosscut. I get a hold of Tom. I say, Tom, I got to tell you, this is your last shift. I want you out of the mine, and you're not going to be part of our mining company anymore. You have refused to do some of the work. You have been a poor miner, and so I'm firing you. This is it, and don't come back tomorrow because you are off the payroll. Tom didn't take that very well. He cussed me up one side, down the other, said he was going to get even. I didn't pay much attention to that. I just did what I needed to do. In fact, I was instructed to do this by the superintendent. Superintendent happened to be a fellow by the name of Johnson Vivian. Well, Johnson had boarded with us when we were in Virginia City, Nevada. He was one of two boarders that lived with our family. Well, Johnson was now the superintendent, and I was working for him. Anyway, I did my duty, went home that evening, had a good dinner, and went to sleep because I had a shift to go to tomorrow. Well, Tom didn't do the same thing. Tom went to the saloon and spent the evening, drinking and getting his courage up. Tom also was sharpening his knife. It was a nice big Bowie knife, about that long of a blade. And And I didn't know that's what he was doing. But the next morning I was headed down toward the California mine to do my shift, and walking by the Buckeye boarding house. And as I walk by, here comes Tom out from the back, and he grabs me and says, "We got something to settle." I said, "Tom, I have nothing more to do with you or settle with you. We've already taken care of that yesterday. You're no longer part of my operation, and I've done my job." And Tom didn't think that was a good enough answer. He kept yelling at me. And as I started to walk away, he grabbed me, turned me sideways, buried that Bowie knife right below my ribs, and opened me wide open. Well, that put me down and in a terrible shape. But there were people around that saw this happen, and they came over to grab me. Tom spent a minute making sure I wasn't going to get back up, and off he went. The folks that saw this happen got a hold of me and hauled me back to my cabin, and the doctor came and spent all day with me. But by 5 o'clock, I had passed away. I was dead. So here I am, lying in there. So the town is starting to reel at my death and what happened with Tom essentially assassinating me. But the people saw where he went. He went up and hid in the mine. And so Deputy Sheriff Hogue went after him. And he found him up there in that mine and was able to arrest him and get him back here to Silver Reef. Put him in the jail. Well, by that time, people were talking about justice. And somebody was mentioning having a necktie party for Tom. Well, Sheriff Hogue thought he'd better make sure that didn't happen on his watch. Well, the next day they had my funeral, and over 500 people show up. That was the biggest funeral that they've had for many a time. You know, I was well liked. My family was well liked, obviously. And so, but during the quiet part in town, when everybody was at my funeral, Deputy Sheriff thought it would be best to get Tom out of town and protect him so he could go have a proper trial. Well, Tom was hauled down to St. George, put in the jail in the county courthouse down there. It was in the basement. But that night, those folks that thought justice needed to be served now instead of later ended up down in St. George. There's a big mass group of folks, and they found the Sheriff Hardy out doing his rounds and accosted him and got his keys. Went down in the basement, let Tom out of his jail cell. He wasn't wanting to go anywhere. Yelling and screaming, they drug him up the stairs outside and found a nice telegraph pole. That was in town, with a arm out the side of that telegraph pole. They threw a rope over it and tried to hang old Tom. The arm broke off. Tom thought he was saved. No, he wasn't saved. They drug him on down the block by the Cotton House. Big old cottonwood tree there. They did the deed. They hung him up over a branch in the cottonwood tree and left him there. Got back up here to Silver Reef. You know, nobody could identify any of those folks. And if they did, they would never admit it. So Tom got hung, got buried in the St. George Cemetery. Nobody knows where. There's no markers. And he didn't have any family and no friends they knew of. So we still don't know where Tom is in the cemetery, but he's there somewhere. Now, but if you want to find me, I'm interned down here in the Protestant cemetery. I have a nice marble headstone that was placed there by my son. And so if you want to go visit me, that's where I'm at. The only other piece of the story you need to know, my wife lived on, she remarried. She married Mr. Johnson Vivian, the superintendent. And so the family had a new father, if you will. The two surviving kids were two sons. One lived till 1838. My wife lived to a good old age. My daughter was an adopted daughter. Her name was Minnie. She was a Paiute lady. But she lived till she was only 35 and died up in Salt Lake. So that's what happened to my family. That's what happened to me.